Jen from Fabulous Paper Emporium. So glad you could join me today for another Card Making 101 easy peasy fun fold. This one doesn't really have a name as far as I know. Just easy fun fold. I couldn't find a name for this one. And originally it started out pretty simple. In the sense that there wasn't a lot on the outside. So I think initially how I was going to design this, again, we're using Alice's Tea Party paper. And initially I think it was just like a simple strip of beautiful pattern paper at the bottom. You could have a sentiment at this bottom flap. I'm using one of the cut aparts from there's one page in that album that's just got a ton of cut aparts. So I'm going to use that at the bottom. And initially I think that's how I intended it to be, but it just looked a little bit too plain. So of course I've added some of the really dark blue, and we're going to do that behind. And we're doing the layers in a little bit of a different, I kind of went back and forth, but we're doing the layers a little bit differently. And it's only a subtle change. And if you like it, go with it. If you don't, then that's fine too. You can go with what we have kind of been doing all along, which is there's usually a 1/4 of an inch difference between your first layer and your second layer. In this case, when it comes to the bands that I've cut, they actually go from side to side. There's a little bit, you can see like a hint of blue, but both of them were cut at 4 inches. So that's going to sit on the card like so. And then for this strip, that will go at the bottom, again, we're going direct from side to side. And when we position this, we're just going to have this I'm late with the floral at the bottom. That's going to be peeking through. So obviously I'm going to have to bring that down a little bit. And then of course on the inside, even though we've got a light card, I decided just to, initially was going to do just this strip on the side, which you can and there's, like I said, there's no right or wrong. So just because I choose to use the blue does not mean that you have to. It could be a super simple, but very elegant and very beautiful card if you eliminated the blue altogether and required like a perfect card for, let's say you had some scraps lying around of some designer paper. This is a beautiful card. Ultimately, beautiful card. Anyways, so I'm getting sidetracked now. So what I will do, I'm going to go through the piece sizes as I normally do. We'll go through the cutting dimensions, the scoring dimensions, and then we'll get into the assembly. Okie dokie. So we're going to start off with our Ivory Cardstock, like we have so many times this week. And this one is cut at 11 inches by 4 1/4. You betcha, it's another A2 card. That way you can get 2 cards out of this. So we have that for our base. The other ivory piece that I have cut for the inside, because we were using the dark, this is what's needed. If you are not putting anything on the inside in terms of a layer, you don't need this piece. So this piece is 2 3/4 by 4 3/4. And then we have our dark blue layers. Again, these are completely optional. It's entirely up to you. So we have our front piece, and this is 4 by 4 1/4. I then have the piece for the flap at the bottom, and this is 4 by 1. And then lastly, we have the piece for the inside, which is 4 by 5. Okay, these pieces are a little bit more random. And when I say random, they're all cut at 4 inches wide, but the height is going to vary. And because these are just cut aparts from inside the paper pack, you can do it as wide or as narrow as you want. So I ended up with one that is about 1 3/4. My little strip at the bottom, which is probably going to be the one that you're focusing on the most. let me just see here how much space we have, because the flap, this bottom little flap goes down first, and then you flip the top piece over. So it leaves you with 3/4 of an inch. And if we are true to form, which is we're leaving, you know, some space around all sides, which we are kind of doing here, kind of not, then there isn't quite as much space all the way around. So this piece is 3/8, no, 5/8. Yeah, 5/8 of an inch. So we have our space, which is 3/4, and this is 5/8. So if you're wondering what 5/8 is on your cutting board, let me just see here. So you have, I'm looking for something to point besides my big old finger. This way you can actually see. Oh, okie dokie. Okay, so we have our 1-inch mark here. This mark right here is the 1/8. So that's 1 1/8. That's 1 1/4, 1 3/8, 1 1/2, 1 5/8, 1 3/4, 1 7/8, and then your 2. And then these little tiny ones are 1/16. Not a lot of 1/16 in card making, but it does happen. I know there are a lot of people that want to stay away from the 1/8, but and I was going to get into it, but we're not doing that right now. We're just going to continue on. The only difference, like I said, is with these strips meeting up side to side. Okay. And then before I get distracted, so this one is 3/8, 5/8, I think. Sorry, I know I just said that. Yes, that's 5/8 by 4. And then I found this other little cut apart that I'm going to use on the inside. And this one is 1 inch across by 3 7/8. So I'll show you what I'm going to do with that little bit in a moment. Okay, so now we are going to, I'm going to show you the scoring measurements. So for this card, you are first going to, I've already scored it, but I'm just going to grab my paper trimmer really quickly, switch out the cutter for the scoring blade, or the scoring, I guess it's not really a blade. Anyhow, so we are going to put our 11 inches at the top, and we are going to move our left-hand side to 4.5. It's a good thing I looked there. 4.5, and we're going to score. And then we're moving it all the way to 9 3/4. 9 3/4. And we're going to score again. And that's going to give us the little flap that comes up. Okay, so I'm going to put away my paper trimmer for right now, and we can get to our making. Again, don't forget that when you fold your score lines, you are going to want to take your bone folder and get that burnished nice and crisp. Okay, it helps keep it closed, because for this particular card, it really doesn't stay closed all that well. It's also not really a card that you're going to be able to stand up. So just something to keep in mind. Unless you did it in this direction, in the landscape, then you could certainly stand it up like that. So, but for this purpose, we're doing everything this way in portrait mode. And we are going to lay our first layer down, first and foremost. I'm going to put some glue around the outside and a little squiggle in the middle. And again, if you wanted to stamp, this is a perfect card. There's lots of space. I mean, just like every card, really. There's lots of space that if you wanted to have a little saying here, or like I said, even a sentiment down here, that would be the perfect spot for it. And then I'm going to figure out where I want to put this guy. So it could be really close to the bottom. It could be in the middle. It could be really wherever you want to put it. I think I'm going to be more towards the bottom. I'm going to leave a little bit of blue showing. And obviously I'm going to start by kind of lining up my left side. Because again, I've got my fingers on the right side and I can kind of pull a little bit if I need to. And then I'm just going to lay it down like that. So I've got a little bit of the blue border kind of peeking out at the bottom. And then I'm going to flip that up. And we are going to place our blue for the bottom. And I like to, you know, I think I've done this a number of times throughout the video tutorials that we've been doing this week. And that is, before I apply any glue to the backs of the paper or the cardstock, I'm always interested in, you know, seeing how it fits beforehand. Even though I've cut everything, there's nothing else on my desk, there's no other random pieces that it could accidentally grab, I always like to make sure that before I apply the glue, that it looks good, it fits, there's the border that I want. Plus it helps you kind of play around with it as well in terms of the placement when the card calls for it. So when I'm laying this piece down, I want this one to be fully visible when this top flap is down. So this is where placement becomes a little bit more important. So I'm just going to apply my glue really quickly. Make sure that I have this in the right direction. And I'm turning it this way just so that I can get a better vantage point personally before I lay this down, because it's so tiny, the strip. Again, I'm keeping my fingers on this piece so that I can kind of navigate it a little bit. Push that down. So I have a tiny strip, that's probably 1/16 of blue at the top and the bottom. So it gives a really nice effect. So that's the outside of our card. We're going to flip this open. We're going to place our blue right here. Just going to grab my glue. Put that down really quickly. These cards, once you kind of have, and I don't know if I've said this in any of my videos here for the beginner card makers, but for me, sometimes what takes the longest is figuring out what beautiful cardstock to use. That's always the biggest challenge for me anyways, is unless I know, unless it's Christmas time and you're making a bunch of Christmas cards, or there's a very specific, and even then it can be quite a challenge. There's so many beautiful Christmas cards out there, or Christmas paper, that, even if it's not something that you have specifically in mind, or like the person likes soccer or hockey or motorcycles, cars, flowers, what have you, it can be really challenging to kind of figure out what to put on a card. So just to give you an idea of what the inside is going to look like, I'm not doing a full layer for this guy. I am just going to do a partial layer because I really like these teacups. So instead of, I could easily have made this little ivory piece could easily have been to fit on the inside. But I really liked kind of having a little bit more interest, a little bit different layering system in. And so I just wanted to give you an idea of what can be done on the inside. It doesn't always have to be an exact triangle, an exact rectangle, or the same shape as your base. Could be a rectangle, square, what have you. If all you had, or if all you wanted to put was perhaps like a strip going across, just kind of to mimic what we had done on the outside, you could cut this at 4 inches and totally be fine. Write a quick little message or stamp something. You could easily do that. You know, it's completely up to you. And that's the great thing about crafts is, you know, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And, you know, what I make, what you make, it's okay. It's good to have differences. Like, it's good to have little, I mean, maybe they're subtle, maybe they're not, but if you don't like something, don't do it. You know, it just is as simple as that. So of course, if I had been stamping or wanting to write a message on here, I would do that before I go to glue it on. And I'm leaving this piece here just to give me a rough idea of where to put this piece. So we're doing a few things a little bit differently today than we have the rest of the week. And again, if you wanted to put it down below, you could. I just smeared a bunch of glue on it, but that's okay. It dries clear, so it's all right. And I'm just going to put that there. And like, it's just as easy as that. There we have our cute little easy fun fold card. So, yeah, so hopefully you have enjoyed. I may be back tomorrow with one last video. I've got a couple of ideas ruminating in my brain, and it's just a matter of getting the measurements down and kind of figuring out what works. So this is it for today. Hopefully you have been enjoying our time together, and hopefully, you know, if you're new to card making, if you know somebody who's new to card making, feel free, please share my videos. I'm always here to answer questions. You can reach me by putting a comment below. I get notified with those. If you want to send us an email, it's fabulouspaperemporium@gmail.com. There's 2 B's in fabulous, because that's my name. So that's what I've done there. Anyhow, so I do really thank you for joining me today. I hope you have a great day and you're staying safe and well. Thanks so much. Bye.